You have your cup of tea?
I do.
So here we are. Cheers.
Years.
Welcome to Love, Awaken, and Prosper.
Yes.
So let's begin. Hello, everyone. How are you? This is Sergia Starr, and welcome to Love, Awaken, and Prosper. And today we have FAY Hauser-Price. Do you go by both names? I know I saw.
Well, I started as an actress, and so FAY Hauser is the way I'm signed up with the guild, right? That's my
I
birth
hear you.
name and my professional name. And then I got married, but I had a body of work before I got married under FAY Hauser. So when I got married, I wanted to keep that body of work and my name, but I added my husband's name, Price, because I started doing a lot of production. And
Yeah.
so I do a lot of production under Hauser-Price.
Yeah, good to know. That's a nice tip for us female women who get married. Because you know what? That's very interesting, because when I was always Sergia Perez, and when I got married, I changed my name to Sergia Starr. And I liked Sergia Starr. I like that as a stage name as well. I like, because my husband's last name is Starr. So I'm like, I like that name.
Yeah.
So I got rid of the Perez, and people are like, but your brand has been under Sergia Perez for so many years. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, I've been out of the business, for a while, so I don't think it's gonna matter. Because I've been just a mom, and I really haven't pursued my acting career, and I guess I'm rebranding myself under Sergia Starr. But that's always something to consider when you're getting married, and especially women are the ones who have to think about that.
Exactly. But I always wanted to honor my parents. So
Yeah.
I even at marriage I wanted to keep my Hauser name.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, I was fortunate enough to be an exchange student when I was in junior high school to South America, to Colombia. And
Mm.
I loved the way they honored their ancestors because they had four last names.
Oh my goodness.
So they had their mother's last names and their father's last names, so that you know all of the lineage. And
That is beautiful, though.
I really like that.
I kind of like that too, because I feel as not just a African American Latino, because of being in the Black diaspora and losing a lot of our history. That's important. Like, I remember going to a play and seeing how the actresses were talking. Not only there were the Asian, also the Asian American actresses. I think one was from Japan or China. I can't remember her, but they could only name like the second grandmother. They
Mm.
didn't know past that.
Hmm.
Like the mother of the grandmother, and that history changed. But in other cultures, like the Jewish culture, and even I probably even the Caucasian or Anglo, they would have the lineage for 100, maybe 200 years, like it goes on and on. So, but we lack that. We really do
Yeah.
lack that. And it's go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'm working on a documentary on my family because of because we started looking at our lineage, um, trying to put it down on paper uh, back before. Alex Haley sort of came out with the Roots thing, because we all have family reunions based on my great great grandmother who was enslaved to my great great grandfather. So so we knew all of those names and we honored all of those names, but we wanted to go back further than that. Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
Wow. That is great, Faye. So that's one of your new productions. So Faye Hauser, everyone, she is an actress, a director, a producer, and a writer. Like all the hats, which I also encompass, right? Like I'm all of those as well. But I can't wait to show you some of her work on this video. I'll probably show clips between back and forth. But yes, please. So it's that's one of your newest projects. You're doing a documentary on your family heritage,
yes.
and awesome. And I saw some of the work that you did in your reel. Uh, and tell me, which is your most let's take it back to the beginning, Faye. Let me ask you, when did you begin to act? When did you start? How did you start in this industry of creative, a creative artist?
Well, I think I started as a kid, as a child. Um, I used to put on plays or put on productions with my best friend Madeline Shepard, Madeline Hamlin, back in North Carolina, and we were inspired. Or at least I was. I'm not sure what her inspiration was, but I was inspired because I grew up in the segregated South, and there were no black actors or actresses or black theater. I take that back, but I'll explain that later. But
Mm.
the only thing we saw basically were a few things on television, and one of them was Our Gang or The Little Rascals. I don't know if
Yes,
you guys know that.
yes. I know the Little Rascals. Yeah, the black and white one. I'm telling on
Exactly.
myself, but yeah.
Yeah, so there was a couple of black kids in that group, and they all did things together. They put on plays, they made soap boxes, they did everything. So that's what I wanted to do.
I always wanted to do that. When I saw the show, I'm like, you see them doing these shows, like that's. And I used to actually do that in my house. I would dress up and just go in front of the TV while and interrupt everyone and jump in front of the TV. I'm like, look at me, and look at this dance, and look at this. I used to just perform for my family. But you actually, are you
Put
telling me
on
how
we
old were
put on
you?
productions.
How
We
old were
put
you?
on production just like they did and sold tickets and had people come and all of that kind of stuff.
What? How old were you when you were doing this?
Well, we were in elementary school,
Wow.
junior high school, you
How
know.
fun. That is so much fun. What did you do? What kind of shows did you guys do?
Well, there was sort of mostly reviews. We danced and we sang and we did little speeches and we did theme shows. We welcomed the state of Hawaii into the United States, and we gave away, pineapples, and we decorated the tree in the base, the poles in the basement like palm trees, and all that kind of stuff. So,
That is so much fun. I just love all of that. I
yeah.
love theater. I love performance and being creative. It's just makes me alive, right? I could see that while you were telling the story how you're remembering it with such joy, of course.
But I
And
didn't think of it as making a living because that wasn't a profession that we knew about. I mean, it wasn't a profession. My parents were both teachers, so we looked at teachers and lawyers, all
and
that kind
what
of stuff.
made the switch? How did you get the I could actually do
Well,
this.
I did a couple of plays in high school, but we didn't have a lot of drama and all of that in high school. When I went to college, I majored in psychology and I got my degree. I got all my requirements early, and I still did. At the time, we were doing protest things, so I did street theater and things like that with some, off-brand kind of people, and I just decided that I was going to study acting. Well, it wasn't acting. They didn't even have acting then at the University of North Carolina, but it was theater. So I had enough time that I got a second degree or got the requirements for a theater degree, and I did that. And I was fortunate enough that there were two Jewish guys, which I found out they were Jewish later, who were a year or so ahead of me in school, and they wanted to start a professional acting company. And so when I graduated, they were going to start this company, and they asked me if I wanted to join. And so I said yes. Um, and that was it. I knew that if I were going to do anything with psychology, that I would need to go back to school. And so I said, well, before I go back to school, let me just see what this is going to be. And I joined their company. We had 2 years of professional acting in a right to work state that did not have unions, but we were in the union, which was crazy. And so that's how it started. I never turned around and went back.
Okay, in 2020, I was part of the Los Angeles Online Theater Festival. Because of COVID. They weren't, the theaters weren't open, so they decided to showcase pieces that were already videotaped online. And Faye, that's how I met you. And I just started hearing about you, and I'm like, let me like research what she's done. And I'm like, what? What's happening? She said she was in What's Happening. If you guys remember that show, that is that was that in the 70s or the 80s, like early 80s,
70s, the 70s,
70s shows, right?
the end of the 70s,
The
yes.
end of the 70s show. And I remember watching that show as a little girl. I would never forget it.
And it's Melanie.
Oh, no.
She's coming this way.
Oh, Raj.
Gorgeous, Rod. Gorgeous.
Oh, thank you, Dwayne.
Talk about Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie Phillips. We were in Algebra 1 together.
Excuse me. If you need any help with your homework, let me know. I've had Algebra 1 3 times.
Rerun, Melanie is in my algebra class. Oh, excuse me, you want to sit down?
Oh, no, thank you, Roger. I was just passing by and I saw you, so I came in to say hello.
You recognize me from the back?
Well, I sit behind you in class.
And that was the most funnest show. And because it was one of the shows that showed people my complexion. So I was on that show. I was like definitely watching it, and I knew very young that I want to do that. Like I want to be
Mm,
on TV, you
mm.
know? So tell me about that experience. So what was your transition from theater into television?
Well, I went from North Carolina, which is where I grew up and went to school, to New York when our company folded. And in New York, at at the time, I was fortunate because I did have a union card, and at that time, you could only go to a union audition if you were in the union. It's not like now, when anybody can be seen. Then you couldn't go unless you had a union card. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do some auditions. I wasn't lucky enough to get a lot of things. So in the interim, I had written a musical in North Carolina, which we produced for the city of Winston-Salem. A couple of years we did it, and a friend of mine who was also in New York said, "I have some friends at a record company, and they're looking for some lyricists, some people to write music." And so I had written this musical, and we went, and I sang some of the songs, and they liked them, and so they hired me as a lyricist. So I said, "Oh, cool." That'll be, like, because I didn't want to do commercials at the time. So that'll be like commercials. I mean, you don't have to be there, and you could make a little money on the side and all that sort of stuff. So I worked as a lyricist for a while and had some records out. And, but I still wanted actually to be in the theater. I got an audition, and I was chosen to be in the touring company of Pearlie, which was Pearlie Victoria. So we went across the country in that, and that's sort of how I got back into theater. And I was with the gentleman who was starring in Pearlie, and we came out here to California, and so then I was here. Actually, I went on a few auditions, and the first couple of that I went on were
What's
What's
Happening?
Happening, which I got, and then I went on another one for Good Times, which I got, and then I went on another one for Roots, and that
Yes.
was I got Roots. That was my third.
You were in Roots? You
Yeah,
know, I don't know that. Okay. Which character do you play in Roots?
I was in Roots, the
The
the next
original.
the next generation.
If you have any trouble with the titles, I'll help you.
That's very kind of you. Actually, there are a lot of old friends here. Shakespeare, Paradise Lost, Mr. Dickens, Mr. Whittier, and Mrs. Browning. Sonnets from the Portuguese.
You don't need any help, do you?
I take the offer kindly, sir. Do you think your father would allow me to borrow this?
Why do you want that?
Well, I have a student. I thought she might find Mrs. Browning most sympathetic.
I'll be damned. I mean, that is an amazing notion. A colored girl reading Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
Okay.
So I was in the second one. After they, left, were emancipated and moved into Tennessee.
Okay.
So I played Carrie Barden, who was the school teacher who taught three generations of Alex Haley's family. So I was not a family member, but I was in 4 of the episodes because I was a teacher and friend of the family. But the story of Carrie, and it is a true story, and you can look up the Bardens, and they were an interracial couple. The owner of the town, basically, the Warners, had a son, and he was into literature and poetry and all of that kind of thing. And the only other person, female, around who had that same kind of interest and worldview was this black school teacher.
Wow.
So they had a
Wow.
relationship.
Back then, wasn't that illegal?
Yes, it was. No, it was not illegal then, but
Okay.
it became illegal afterwards.
Yeah, because of you guys.
Yes, because at the time, like I said, in my family, my great-great-grandmother was enslaved to my great-great-grandfather, and they had children, and
Yeah.
it was okay for it to be illegal. I mean, for it to be
If
illegitimate.
you're the owner of the person, then you're just making extra product.
Exactly.
But if you're doing it for love, it's gonna be illegal.
Exactly.
Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. But you know what, Sergia, which is what I started finding out when I'm researching this thing from my family, the documentary. My cousin had an opportunity to speak in Cuba. So I went there to film her and just to see if there were any root connections, any geological connections.
Yes.
Genealogical connections there. And what I was reminded of was the difference between the way the English had their slaves and the way the Spanish treated their slaves. And it was easier to move into legitimate society if you were a person of color, if you were in a Spanish-speaking environment, than it was in an English-speaking environment, because of their, this is what I found out from Mexico from this thing, but because the king of Spain did not want his explorers to be having sex without marriage. So he sanctioned marriage, even if you were going to marry an Indian, a Native American, or a person of color. He just wanted to know what it was. He wanted to have the lineage there. He wanted to know how he could tax you. And
oh wow.
Yes.
Wow. For the taxes, like you hear this?
For
I'm
the
listening to this. I'm like, what?
Yes. So that there was a way to move
Again,
into society.
money.
Yeah, again, money, exactly.
Wow,
A way to
wow.
move through society. Although you do have colorism and all of that other stuff, but it was a different approach to humanity, which is why the Spanish-speaking countries have a lot of color in their
Yes.
cultures.
Yes, we definitely in Puerto Rico a lot of mixtures. Of all of it. We have the
Yes,
African American, the Taino, the Spaniard in us.
the Native
Um,
American.
Na- yeah, the Tainos is the Native American.
Okay,
So in
all right. I didn't
the
know
that's
that
the
word. I didn't
okay. So
know
that's what we call that was our the Indians.
that. Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But the correct word is Taino. So it's Taina, Taino, and then yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. I can't, you know what? That's gonna be a really interesting documentary because I love watching documentaries. I'd rather watch a good documentary than a movie, sometimes because you come out with knowledge. I come out
Yeah.
with wisdom instead of just, oh, I got entertained.
Yeah, right,
I saw
exactly.
people fight, but now like, and with the documentaries, you expand, right? You evolve.
Right,
So I
right.
can't. That's awesome. Congratulations on that. I can't
Well,
wait to see that project in its
thank you.
fulfillment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's your current project. Um, Tell me. So you did all of these shows, and when did you decide? Okay, I want to make movies now. I want to do like I saw that you have written
On a couple of things. Yeah.
short films, and you directed it. So you wrote and directed and produced your own films.
Well, I've yes done it in collaboration with some other people. Yes, some DGA members of mine, some writer friends. Yeah, and some things on my own. But making a a movie or a film is very difficult, very expensive, and
Yes.
so you really have to have partners that can help you do that kind of thing. The reason why I started doing it, first of all, is it all goes back to those little rascals. Um, I always thought that I would do that in my career at some point. And the point came as I matured. I got a lot of work, especially because I got a lot of notoriety from doing Roots. I was the new kid on the block, and there weren't a lot of parts for women, first of all, and there certainly weren't a lot of parts for African American women. And most of the things were like arm candy, or, they didn't have a lot of meat to them in terms of character or, story plot or any of that other kind of thing.
Yes.
Um, and I come from the theater, and I like character work. I like, depth. I like all of that stuff that
Yes.
goes with it. And so I was really kind of unsatisfied,
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
basically.
Yes. Yes.
Because,
I understand. Yeah.
you get to, you get a part, but it's not a big part. And it's just sort of just to be there, basically, a lot of times. So anyway, but as you age in this business, and particularly as I aged at the time that I aged, um, women after 35 weren't getting any work hardly. I'm talking about white women. Jane Fonda
Right.
couldn't get work. People
Right.
weren't getting work. So I was basically aging out of getting jobs. I wasn't an ingenue anymore, and they didn't really consider women to have any career after that. Basically, they weren't doing bones and all of that kind of thing where they were, legitimate workers that the story could be around them. So
Yes.
as I was approaching that point, I started doing a little bit of voiceover work, and I had a friend he was an executive at CBS, and decided that there wasn't enough African American content on television. There was hardly any. And he started a company called SI Communications, and he asked me if I wanted to join him. And they were going to produce programming about African Americans. And so I said yes. And I started doing programs with them. Um, it was called Story of a People. We did that, which was a quarterly stuff about African Americans, in all kinds of jobs, in not just entertainment, but in education and civil rights and all of that kind of thing. In charity work, sports. We did The Other Side of Victory, which Arthur Ashe and oh gosh, and I can't remember her name. But anyway, they were the hosts for it. So we just did all kind of programming, and I learned camera stuff from them. I learned editing. I learned writing, all of that from being a
Were
part
these
of the company.
were these just interview shows, or
We
what were they?
We called them edutainments.
Yes.
Because they had educational elements to them, but they were always entertaining. We always had music and dance and all kinds of things in there to make it entertaining.
Yes. You got to keep the audience fixed on something, right?
Right, but they were interviews. Yes, they were interviews.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Is that still going on? Is that a company, a production that's still up? Oh, okay.
No, it was very difficult to do because if you understand at that time there was only 3 networks, right? ABC, NBC, and CBS. Yes. And so they had license to do all of the programming every day, all night. And so the federal government was persuaded because of civil rights that they needed to have more programming, and this was a monopoly, and they needed to give other people an opportunity to put programming out there. And so they had to deregulate the companies, and the companies had to allow people to have programming before the evening news, after the soap operas, before the evening news, and after the 11 o'clock news. So in those spaces, which was not prime time, you could present programming. And so that's what we did. We presented program, but you had to then get your own advertisers. You had to find advertisers and to pay for that programming. And that was very difficult because all programming was predicated on how you did with the Nielsen ratings. I don't know if you know what the Nielsen ratings are.
Share a little bit. I've heard of the Nielsen, but just share a little bit for my audience.
Well, in that time, this was like, and the Nielsen still go on, but it was a group that monitored what people looked at. And then they would say, oh, we've had millions of people that are watching this program, so our advertisers want to put their advertisers on that program, and so they gave money to the production companies to make programs. So that's how money flowed into the companies. And if your program didn't make money, then the advertiser didn't want to be on it, and you couldn't get any money to make your program. So when independent people came in, they didn't have any advertising money. The only way they could get advertising money was if they could prove that their programs people were watching. The Nielsen's only had, Letters and Nielsen's is a Caucasian company, or I don't know if it's Jewish or Caucasian, but anyway, they didn't have any people of color that they were looking at, so they didn't know who was looking at people of color, and they didn't really care. So it was very difficult to get money to make our programs because you couldn't prove that anybody was watching it.
Wow.
So we sort of died a natural death in that thing. And as people started understanding it more, they started protesting more, so that there were more Nielsen boxes on African American sets, so that at least they could be monitored. But I haven't looked at how the Nielsen's are configured now. I'm sure that there are more people of color that are in their sample, but who knows how many that is. So I still don't know what's accurate in terms of who is watching what and how those advertising monies should be divvied up.
Wow. We don't know. It should be public knowledge though, right?
It
What do you think?
probably is. It probably is. But they want to keep it. You want to keep it on the down low in terms of you don't want people to know that you don't want the population to know that you have a Nielsen box on your television because then you can be
Oh, you know what?
all kinds of things.
Yes, they pay people to have the box to rate what they're watching, right?
Yes.
I remember that the Nielsen came knocking on my door for it, but some reason it didn't happen, you know. And, but they did it. They knocked in our neighborhood and told us what it was, and this is how we find out, and how many people watch what, and like one person represents I think 10,000.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And so wow. And yes,
Yeah.
they need to have those boxes in some, black folk homes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But we try not to watch a lot of TV in our house. If you want to watch TV, only on Fridays, Saturday, and Sundays. And throughout the week, there's school, there's homework, there's work, and so, let's just. And on vacation, they've been on vacation, so they've been watching. We let them go relax, go do whatever you want. They're playing video games or whatever. And watching their TV shows, binging on Netflix, everything that they haven't seen.
Right.
So, anything that people should be watching out for, that you have out there in social media.
Couple of things. I don't know if anybody has been watching or listening to the podcast Bronzeville. It's still up on all the audio platforms. It's called Bronzeville, and it's about Chicago in the 40s, when Chicago, when African Americans sort of ran part of the city, and so I play a character on that, and it's always good to check out.
Okay, I didn't know about the podcast. So tell me, this is a podcast, but you're
I'm a
actor?
character in it. Yes, I'm an actor in it. I play Mrs. Holder, which is a neighbor. And the podcast is produced and stars Lawrence Fishburne and Lorenz Tate. It's on iTunes and Spotify,
Okay.
Google Play, all of the audio networks.
And any other projects that you're working on?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Actor-wise, yeah, I did right before the world shut down for COVID. I did a project called Bed and Breakfast, and it's a feature film. And we're doing a few festivals right now, but I think they are close to getting some distribution. We were fortunate enough to do a festival in Los Angeles at the Mann's Chinese the Mann's Chinese Theater, and it went really well. And we were awarded Best Cast.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
It's a comedy and it's fun, and so be on the lookout for it. Called Bed and Breakfast, and I play the woman who runs the bed and breakfast.
Can I ask what the title is?
Of course. Oculus Obscura.
That sounds interesting.
Interesting is always an interesting choice of words.
What do you mean?
Well, the word interesting makes it seem like a positive statement without telling anybody what they really think, whether they like it or not. It's a safe response.
I guess that's true. You're a very intelligent young man, Tony.
Well, if that's true, why am I in the movie business?
Do you mind if I read your script? I won't tell anyone, promise.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And then the other
Um,
piece that I did was called The Myth of Control.
Hey!
What's that?
Well, now that the show is canceled,
I thought you were killed off.
some difference. What do you think about a mohawk? My assistant says it'll mess up my image.
I knew it.
My stylist says my cheekbones are sharp.
Sharp as in good or sharp as in bad?
Sharp like ageless. Fierce. Good. And we did that during the lockdown. And it was very innovative. It was our crew and our cast were in, I think, 26 different cities. Everybody, just like we are now, in the Zoom world, in the online world. So nobody actually interacted with anyone in person. But they produced a series. And I was one of the characters in that series. And it's called The Myth of Control. And I think also we are about to get some distribution for that.
that's a feature.
No, it's a series.
Okay, so wow, wait a minute. It's a series, but it got filmed on Zoom.
Yes, but they sent. Well, it didn't get filmed on Zoom. It got how do you say?
I want to know how they recorded, and you guys were all over the place and other.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They sent the equipment to you. And you filmed on the equipment that they sent. They sent lights and camera and audio.
God.
And
By
they
yourself. So
but the
tell me.
control room was here on Zoom. So you were connected to the director and the producer and the lighting and the audio through Zoom, and they directed you with the equipment that they sent, and then you would send your stuff that you taped back to them, and then they put it together.
I am bugging out right now.
But I sent you a clip of that too.
What?
Yeah.
That is the first time I ever heard that happening. I haven't heard that story yet. Oh my goodness! I'm in my mind. I'm only thinking the work that it took to create that. You know, not only you're not just an actress now. Now you're in. Did they pay you extra? Did they pay you extra? You're doing like props and camera
Absolutely, all of that.
Wow, I can't wait to see how that one now is very interesting just by that alone. Like the background of its production. That will be really interesting. And that one's called The Myth of Control.
Yes.
So Faye, tell me about your the movies that you've directed. I understand that you directed a TV show called what is it? No Pressure After High School.
Yeah, we're in production. We're in production on that. It's a limited series, and I direct the pilot episode. And it's about kids who just graduated from high school and what they're going to do with their lives. And so that's what the episode that I have is about. It's them just getting out of high school and trying to figure it out. What we gonna do? And they live in, what would typically be called the hood. Whether they're going to stay there, what they're going to do there if they stay there, what impacts them, and, how I think that's one, we'll talk to the audience of, young African American children who are living in the hood, because that's something that's a real good conversation. Some people, it's very interesting how we see it growing up in the hood that we have to get out. Yeah.
Right. And instead of thinking, what can we do to make the hood better?
Better, exactly.
Right? Yes, yeah. So that will be an interesting show to watch to see what these kids come up with.
Yeah.
They're really. So let's watch the video.
We have our whole lives ahead of us, so let's make it epic. Group hug.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's out.
Haters, damn. Thank you.
This is a stick-up. This isn't a game.
You got the stuff back.
Too sharp.
I mean, I don't know.
I still can't believe my own cousin would rob me at gunpoint.
And this is why we need to leave the hood.
So these little clips are you wrote, directed, and produced.
Yeah, I had some of the production in them. Yes, mostly as a director and as a writer for 50. Well, I directed 5150 and did some production on it.
That's
And
another. Like, is that a short, a feature?
It's
What
a
was
short.
that?
It's a short film. And yeah.
Where
And
can we see that? Is that up somewhere?
you can see it through my channel at House Lights, but
On your website.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll definitely add your information here so that people can see it. I can't wait to hear more about your documentary and anything else that you have. Definitely, if you have anything new, let me know, and I will definitely interview about it. I would love to have you on my show again.
Okay, thank you. You know what I forgot to say, and I forget it all the time, because some of your people might know me not from film or television per se, but they might know me from the soap operas, because
Which ones?
I was on The Young and the Restless for 5 years.
Really?
As Detective Selena Wiley.
You know what? It's the life of the artist is always, we need to always get, once one gig is done, we have to look for the next gig, right? It's not it's a difficult road, but it's very rewarding, and when you get to do what you love doing.
Exactly.
It is. It's like it's one of those careers where it's like, I don't care. I'll sleep in my friend's sofa, or I'll just wait tables until but it's in the end, do what you love to do. And
I always say that being an artist is being a person who develops faith, because you have to have faith to walk on nothing, to know that there will be ground under you when you step.
Yes.
Because you can't see it. You just have to believe it and go forward.
And it shows up all the time, right? Like
Absolutely.
It shows up that whenever you get a job, it's showing up, and it's happening. And guys, it's definitely it happens when you live your dream. You will attract what it is that's in your heart.
Yeah, you got to work though. You got to work. You can't just dream about it. You have to actually put in the work to hone your craft or to be better at what it is you do, right?
Definitely. One of the things is be prepared.
Absolutely.
If the opportunity comes, be prepared. Yeah, so you have to do your acting classes, do dance, voice, whatever you think is gonna. Some people that have done miming, pantomiming, there's so many other skills that you can acquire. Karate classes, if you want to do action films. It's, the sky's the limit for the, if you want to be in the world of entertainment.
Right. Speak in your church, in your, school, get up in front of people and do it, right? Wherever you can.
Okay. Yes. As far as perform, I wrote my one-woman show, and I toured that, and I got spoiled with having a one-person show. And I was like, I don't want to do Hollywood anymore. And
the other thing is you were having fulfillment too. You were having, fulfillment in terms of, giving back, in terms of putting something out there. You weren't just like that's what I was saying in terms of, getting roles. The roles that were out there for us weren't satisfying. They may have paid us a bit of money, but they didn't satisfy anything in your soul. You didn't feel like you were adding anything to the universe, to people's stories, and so when you're doing work like you were doing, your solo pieces, it just makes you feel like you are giving something back, that you're helping somebody, that you're giving some insight. So
And that's exactly how it made me feel. It was a great high. And yeah. So again, thank you, FAY Hauser-Price. You are such a beautiful woman, talented all around, and such an inspiration for me as well, because I definitely want to put my director's hat on in film. I've done it in theater, but not in film yet. And so, which is something that I am working on, and you know, you being around people like you just inspires me to like push through, like you could do it.
Yeah.
And have faith.
Yes.
Faith.
Definitely.
I'm so glad that you said yes, and we finally got you on camera. And so thank you so much for your time with us here at Love, Awaken, and Prosper. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun to get to have a spot of tea with you.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes. So we will see you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you. Please press like, leave any comments, and please share if you enjoy this show and what we talked about today. Please share with your friends. So God bless you. I love you. Mwah. Bye-bye.